So first of all, it's an honor to be here, and thank you everybody for being here. And as I said since the beginning of my mandate, for us it's also a priority for our country to become more visible in the region. And I would like to thank again Mr. President Joannou for the initiative and the huge effort, and I'm here to support, and I think you're helping us very much. And it's time for Romania to be more visible. I'm saying that during my presentation, during the Invest Romania presentation, which I used to do as a Secretary of State, but also now as a minister. And if we're talking about the first topic, about the periphery, as you said, so I remember that the big revolution of the car manufacturer in the US created the periphery. And I quite believe that Henry Ford was the, let's say, founders with the T model, if I'm not wrong. So in order to be the periphery, first of all, you need to create the periphery. And I think that Romania did a huge effort after the revolution, after 1989, to become again part of Europe. And to become part of the European Union, which is a high priority for us. And I think we need to understand the entire process, and step by step, Romania is becoming more visible. It's becoming, let's say, more influential and more important for the future development of Europe. And of course, there are two major moments. The one in 2004, when we become members of NATO, and since we are, I believe, let's say, we are for sure the most important ally for the United States in the South and Eastern Europe. And we are the most pro-American country in the European Union. So I think it's quite a lot. And we show that we are able to be partners, not just in the region, but all over the world. And our soldiers were highly appreciated in Afghanistan and Iraq. So we are also a proactive partner. And of course, this year we're celebrating 10 years being part of the European Union. And of course, we all know that unfortunately, let's say in the beginning of our integration, the crisis appears and things change dramatically in Europe. But we show that we are focused to develop the country. And in the global context with the Black Sea in general, and I think that Romania decided many years ago in which part the country wants to be. So, of course, as you said, and I believe it's very, very important to build the future. And the Black Sea, it's a huge priority. It has a huge potential, and as you know, Constanta is the largest and the deepest port to the Black Sea. And also, we can, through the Danube River, actually cut costs for transportation comparing to Rotterdam by 5 to 7 days. So I think there are many, many things to say about Romania. In 5 minutes, it's very complicated, but I just want to say that the government is focusing to create a better business environment. And one of my main priorities as the Minister for Business Environment, Commerce and Entrepreneurship, it's also to support the small and medium companies. So I'll just give you two main examples. One is the prevention law, which supposed to create, let's say, a better business environment, because up to now, when control comes to small companies, and because we really want to develop this sector and to bring more Romanians to the middle class, you know, a company, a family company in general of 3 to 4 people, they don't know all the regulations. They don't know everything about everything. So usually the control comes, and sometimes for small things, companies were affected, sanctioned, and so on. So they were very, let's say, not happy with the situation. So this new bill, which is in the parliament now, which is going to pass in approximately 2 weeks, will oblige the fiscal authorities and all the, let's say, control to create, first of all, a 90 days period for the small companies to put things in order for over 500 contraventions. Of course, not those affecting health or life or security. We are working very intensely to finalize the PPP bill, the private-public partnership bill, which I think is very important in this new context. And I invited to the group also the World Bank, the European Bank for Development, also my colleagues from the government, and recreated really a very good bill. So we are going to present it to the Prime Minister together with the secondary legislation, because we want everything to be in place this year. And this is another important measure because it will let the government create projects now, create an added value now, and start to pay them when they start to operate. So it will be a huge plus. In the end, I just want to say that the relationship between Romania and US, it's improving very much. I know that this year we did a great effort, and I'm working very closely with the embassy. And we wanted to extend, let's say, the strategic partnership, which is very important from the security point of view, to also better trade and economic partnership. So we organized the largest US Romanian business companies delegation to the Select USA. And it was a huge success. We have a huge delegation there, and one company already announced $100 million investment in the US, Romanian company. And this October, in 2 weeks, we are host for Trade Winds, which is one of the most important events for helping US companies becoming international. So I believe we are doing quite a lot. And again, we want to be more visible, and we want to be more involved in everything.
Mr. Minister, thank you very much. I hope that the U.S. Congress is taking the lead from your parliament in terms of dealing with these super regulations, which have to be cut back anywhere. I'm going to introduce the mayor of Constanta in just a second. I had the privilege of being in Constanta last week, and not only could this really be the new Houston of this part of the world, it also could become the centerpiece for making Constanta into much more of a military outpost, which would have significant effect positively on the Russians. As you will know, there is an Aegis Ashore anti-missile base at MK, air base not far from Constanta. The Americans have just signed an agreement in Tuzla to upgrade the airport there for facilities. And so you have much greater American military presence. But you combine that presence with more security, and then you combine that with more economic dynamism, and all of a sudden you see in Constanta perhaps the seed from which this economic growth can spread throughout not only just Romania, but the rest of southern Europe. Mayor Decebal Fagadau of Constanta, it is a pleasure to meet you and to have you on this panel, and you have 5 to 7 minutes to make your case. And I hope, as I said before, the bankers are listening.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor to be here today. And I want to thank Mr. President Joanna for inviting me. I must recognize that I was a bit surprised when I received the invitation to be speaker. Generally, these kind of forums involve strategic specialists, bankers, central government people, and to be invited as a mayor, I said, oh, why? I'm going to be there, because I don't speak an excellent English like Mr. Joanna. I'm not so experienced and charismatic as His Excellency Mr. Meleshkanu. I don't look so well as Mr. Laufer. I don't have so much money as the bankers do. So why am I invited to be speaker in such an important forum? And I had the curiosity to read the title of this plenary session. And I'm not going to read entirely the title. A Transatlantic Anchor. And I said, okay, anchor sounds well. Constanta, the biggest and the deepest port on the Black Sea. So anchor, I know this. Transatlantic, okay, because if I'm allowed to present myself, I'm pro-European, and I believe in North Atlantic Alliance. So transatlantic anchor, Constanta is the place. So I'm gonna try in the rest of the time to convince you that Constanta has the best position to be an anchor. Why? Because it's the oldest city in Romania. Our history, it's, let's say, more than 2,600 years. So this anchor has deep roots. We are the largest and the deepest port on the Black Sea, but not only this. We are the second largest economic area of Romania from the point of view of this report, GDP per capita. We are a border of EU and NATO. We have the military base in 10 minutes fast driving. So we have the ingredients to be the place. And I've understood this from the beginning of my mandate, that my role is to show everybody that we have all ingredients to be the proper place. Of course, first we need to declare this. That's why I've started with a statement, with the values, with the family, I believe. Second, of course, we need partners. And the first contract I signed in my mandate, it was with ERBD. And I want to thank ERBD that in less than 3 months, we've signed a financial agreement. Next week, we are going to sign the second contract, but in the same day, Constanta is going to be the first city working directly with the World Bank, because we are going to sign next week a technical agreement protocol with the World Bank. Of course, we need partners. Constanta is in a matrix of cities. We have sister cities: Shanghai, Yokohama, Istanbul, Rotterdam. But do we use these twinning programs in the right manner? Constanta, through me, is represented in the European Committee of Regions, and we are debating about the future of Europe. Constanta has 3 state universities and other private universities. Constanta has growing number in economics, in demographics, and Constanta has also one attitude, a positive attitude. Believe me, I'm the worst English speaker in Constanta. And I think you are going to be convinced on your second visit in our city that we have transparent procedures. We have good reputation businessmen in Constanta. We have everything needed to connect, to strengthen this anchor in many points. Of course, speaking about seas, Constanta, together with Trieste, Aberdeen, Klaipeda, and Antwerpen, we are in a program financed directly by the EU Commission, Portis, Civitas Portis, because we want to learn medium-sized port cities about the issues we had in the past, how we've solved these issues, to transfer knowledge, and after that, to work on innovation. Of course, we are prepared because with Trieste and Klaipeda, we already have connections to be part in this new concept with the 3 Cs. But more than this, my presence here has to be a statement. We, as Mr. Minister declared, we have to promote ourselves more. With the Romanians, we have to show our partners that we don't have just to count the years for the strategical partnership or for being part of this big European family. We have to involve ourselves. We have to be, let's say, very positive in this attitude and very straight. Because I agree with Mr. Meleshkanu. We are creating strategies, we are speaking about the strategies, and we are not following after that everything. My role here is that our city, my city, myself, we want to overpass this phase of being observers. We want to be actors in this new strategy. We have all the ingredients, and believe me, Constanta is the best place for an anchor. We need strength to strengthen the tides with other regions, with other cities. And to finish, because I think the time is over, I invite you to discover how Constanta changed. More than 2,000 years ago, Publius Ovidius Naso, one of the greatest poets of Latinity, was exiled in Tomis, in Constanta, and he was unhappy at that time. I invite you, everybody, to visit our city today and to discover that you have no reason to be unhappy today, and you have all the ingredients to discover your second home in our city. Thank you, everybody, and once again, Mr. President and all the organizers, congratulations. Aspen.
Thank you.
Okay, just one moment. I forgot to tell you something from behind the doors. Together with Aspen team, we are working on Aspen City Lab for Constanta, and we are writing City Lab, city from Constanta, of course. Thank you, Mr. President.
You made a stirring case for Constanta. I think that was terrific. Yosuke Kawakami is the Japan Director for the European Reconstruction and Development Bank. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Director. The floor is yours.
Bună dimineața, and my name is Yosuke Kawakami. I'm the Director for Japan at the EBRD. This is my, well, first of all, I'd like to thank the sponsors, the Aspen and the German Marshall Fund for inviting me as a speaker. And this is my second visit to Romania. The first time was back in 1936 when I came to advise on the insurance market reform here, especially on automobile insurance and compulsory liability insurance. So when I was pleasantly surprised when, when the car stopped in front of the crosswalk when I was trying to walk past it. So I know that Romania has now built into a very civilized country where the car stops for pedestrians. Before I go into my prepared remarks, I should answer Harlan's questions about the periphery and the Marshall Plan. And from my viewpoint, Romania is actually at the frontier, if not the periphery. I understand that the MSCI is considering a promotion of Romania from frontier status to emerging market status. So you may not be in the Premier League, but hopefully you will be in the emerging market league in the next few months, if not in the next few weeks. As far as the Marshall Plan is concerned, the EBRD is actually a product of Marshall Plan 1.5 because this bank was actually established to help countries like Romania, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Bulgaria transition from the former communist totalitarian regime to a market economy and democracy. And I was involved in the establishment of the bank 26 years ago. Anyway, congratulations again to the 10th anniversary of your accession to the EU, because I was at the OECD in Paris when you were exceeded to the European students. So anyway, to my prepared remarks. Can I get the PowerPoint? Okay, thank you. So we'll just skip that. So I'm going to talk about the relations between Japan, EU, EBRD, and Romania. Now, as far as the EU is concerned, you may know that Japan and the EU reached agreement in principle on a sort of a comprehensive economic partnership agreement back 3 months ago in early July. And our view towards Europe is that, of course, we want a strong Europe, maybe a stronger European Eurozone core, and of course, with other countries. And as far as the UK is concerned, I'm not sure if any British people are here, but we would, of course, like the UK to remain in the EU as a strong UK, but of course, if they elect to drop out, that's their decision, but we would like the UK to retain a strong partnership with the rest of the Union. Obviously, for third countries like Japan, US, others, the UK remains a strong anchor in our relations with the European continent. I don't think I need to tell you what common values we share. We are implementing global partners, sharing fundamental values, the values that I mentioned already: market economy, democracy, rule of law, human rights. And these are actually inscribed in the charter of the EBRD that was last 1991. And as you know, European Union is a market of more than 500 million. We are 1/4, but we produce just 1/3 of the world GDP. So together, it's a 30% of the world market. And this economic partnership agreement will promote trade and investment by eliminating tariffs, reviewing trade investment rules, which will contribute to growth, employment, and competitiveness of both sides. And then there is another leg to this relationship. Of course, the foreign minister knows very well, but there is another more political dimension with also principally agreed what we call a strategic partnership agreement that covers mainly almost 50 areas, including politics, cultural areas, science and technology, you name it, there's there. But anyway, so in passing, I just want to say that because the Trump administration has pulled out of the TPP, and that I believe the TPIP is also in doldrums, this Japan-EU EPA, my colleagues in Japan and I believe at the European Commission are probably scrubbing the legal details, but if agreed among the 28 or 29, including the UK, countries will be the largest economic partnership agreement that the world has now. So that's the sort of the significance. The EBRD strategy in Romania. So what we are doing now is to develop capital markets. We have a trade facilitation program. We did the Vienna II initiative after the great global financial crisis. We're helping Romanian companies, Romanian government issue local currency bonds, and we also provide equity and mezzanine financing. And we are also improving infrastructure and municipal services with the SMART scheme that was introduced recently. And we have also strengthened competitiveness with governance and management reforms, in especially the railways and energy sector here. Finally, to the relationship between Japan and Romania. In spite of the large potential, I know that Romania is a fairly large market with 20 million people, but there's only a little bit of trade, only 400 million each way, but you export more to us than we do to you, so you are one of the exceptions. Anyway, I think there is much more room, much more potential with the economic partnership agreement that I just mentioned. And the foreign minister will probably remember the visit by Deputy Minister Kishi 3 months ago. Now, Deputy Minister Kishi, he happens to be the brother of the prime minister. So I think you understand how much importance the present government attaches to the relationship between Japan and Romania. Finally, what we have done and what we are doing. Japan has actually provided port development assistance to the port of Constanta. I was actually in Ukraine last week visiting 5 cities in 6 days. Lviv, Poltava, Kremenchuk, Kiev, and Odessa. And I am pleased to note that Constanta is already privatized. And I've met the mayor. From what I hear, I mean, you are much more developed in Odessa. Incidentally, Odessa is also a sister city of Odessa, of Yokohama. So I hope to be. So I hope that Odessa will catch up with your status in the future. We also helped with the rail modernization between Constanta and Bucharest and the airport, and we have also provided protection measures in a power plant here. Now, what's ongoing? Now there is the Metro number 6 that's been held up in traffic for the last several years, but hopefully it can be restarted. And I hear that Bucharest has also been a victim of if not big earthquakes, but small earthquakes in the future and in the past. So, of course, Japan has much earthquake resilient technology, expertise, experience to offer. So we can help with any earthquake resilient urban planning here in Bucharest or around Romania. And as far as industrial cooperation is concerned, I know that there is a Nissan Runo subsidiary, Dacia, here. You know that Nissan Runo, which has now acquired Mitsubishi. Nissan and Mitsubishi are the leaders of electronic vehicles in Japan. So hopefully, if the European continent moves to a electronic vehicle agenda, perhaps the Dacia can sort of start producing the Nissan Leafs and the Mitsubishi electrical vehicles that Runo has acquired. And I know that Romania has been a hub during the Comic-Con times for aerospace and IT, and of course you have a much potential in agriculture. So I hope that the economic partnership agreement that I described in the beginning can promote to furthering our economic ties in the future. And I will stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I take away from your talk, Constanta could be the new Yokohama as well as Houston. I would like to introduce as our next speaker, Sumin Park, who is the director of the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development. Mr. Park, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. And today, to contribute, I bring a small experience of Korea to share with you. Can I show my slide? Let's start. Oh, yes. This is a map of Korean Peninsula and East Asia. And actually, I drew 2 lines, as you see, the red lines. In Korea, from kids to grandfather and mother, the common thinking is we are in between country, in between Western world and in between China and Northern communism, old communism, like that. So this is my first time to draw this red line, but I think all the Koreans share these lines because this is our situation. But all times we thought, oh, we are in really, really difficult situation in between. But nowadays we think this was a blessing because we started our economy development 50 years ago with strong alliance with Japan, United States, which is Western world. So we created export and we asked support. And under the support and partnership, we created a manufacturing business for our export. And then after 20 or 30 years challenge, suddenly we can see China opening. We could see. So from that time, we shared our experience and development capacity with China. So nowadays, Korea is handling our economy and business right in the interjunction of these two influences. So nowadays, still we have many troubles and many difficulties from both parties, both groups, but it's totally up to interpretation. It can be difficulty, but it can be opportunity. This is our small experience. So, but I hope to ask your audience, it can be only the case of Korea? I don't believe so. If you think about Japan, my colleagues' country, 120 or 30 years ago, late 19th century, when Japan started their modernization, Meiji Revolution, Japan has that two lines, as far as I believe. Yes, kind of a frontier and part of Asia. However, the country who met the Western trade first. That was the success of the secret, I think. And also, if you think about United States 250 years ago, when they started their revolution, industrial revolution, United States was the kind of a new territory, periphery of European economy. However, United States made a good coalition with European society and then made march toward West, which is Pacific Ocean. So United States also made their success under in-between position. So then let's go to map of Romania. I don't know if I'm good or if I'm right, but you are the better expert. You can draw some lines under your map. And this is your agony, and this is your future. I believe so. So please draw lines, and please take the opportunity of these lines. If I can share a small experience of Korea, I have no capacity to make clear definition of national will. But as far as I understand, there is national will. If there is national will, and if the national will gathers into one direction and in one well-aligned future, you will have future. Because you have to open your country to international society, and in economic terminology, we call this global value chain. Global value chain is circulation of capital and trade and money and all the technologies. So you have to be connected to the global value chain, as Korea did, as Japan did, as the United States did. And to be opened and to be connected, you should change your DNA, which calls structural reform. Many things, corporate governance, judiciary reform, many things are waiting for you. And the last thing I hope to stress is this. No country in this world can solve their problems at the same time. Even United States, even France, even Germany, Japan, all the rich countries cannot solve their agonies at the same time with one single will. So priority is everything. My experience with the developing countries in this region and the other region, my first recommendation is every time is same. export-first infrastructure. You need infrastructure to make good business. However, the infrastructure is not creating value or wealth, then you will just bury your very important capital into just concrete. So first, use your capital to the export-oriented infrastructure, wherever it is, and then the infrastructure will create value and wealth, and then you can reinvest the wealth into the other sectors and the other futures. So I hope to say you have blessings. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that your two lines are quite brilliant. Comparing Korea to Romania, with one exception, those lines should converge in Constanta. Patricia Rook is with the European Investment Bank. Over to you, please.
Well, thanks. Good morning from my side. And first of all, thanks to the organizers for putting together such a wonderful event and such an interesting discussion. Let me start with a personal observation reflecting a bit on the term periphery, which we are talking about in this panel. So I am based in Luxembourg, but when I come here to Bucharest, it doesn't feel like periphery at all. It feels like a European capital, and I feel it buzzing. You see new restaurants opening up, cafes, expositions. So, as I said, it feels like a European capital in the very true sense, and not like periphery at all. And well, I tend to view things more from the European angle, and there it's also perhaps an interesting observation when you look at the Eurobarometer polls, which gives you a sense what people have on their minds. You would see that when you look at Europeans' main concerns, you would see, well, the usual things. It's terrorism, immigration, the economic situation. Romania is no exception to that. It's pretty much in line. And when you look a bit further, you would also see that Romania records the 4th highest share of people who trust the EU, which is, from a European perspective, of course, pretty encouraging. And it's also quite optimistic when it comes to how do you see the Europe's future, because about I think it's more than 50% of Romanians who view that positively. And as we've heard this morning, with the Council presidency coming up and the special summit taking stage in Romania in March 2009, Romania, from a European perspective, is not going to be periphery at all. It's going to be right at the center, in a sense. So, thinking a bit about the second part of the title of this panel, being an anchor. What does it mean, being an anchor? Well, first of all, for being an anchor, that requires strength and sturdiness. So I was asking myself, when I look at the European economy, when I look at the Romanian economy, what is the situation? And obviously there are a number of strengths. You see growth, which is impressive, above 5% per year. Romania is a market which has a considerable domestic size, which makes it an interesting location for investment. It allows for economies of scale. It has an obvious role in the region because of size. Also, when you look at the World Bank, they assess the doing business climate regularly, and it's an interesting measure to look at. And when you compare over time, actually, it's quite impressive, because 10 years ago, you look at 2006, Romania ranked, I think, 71, and now last edition was 36. So that's quite something. It actually puts Romania in the top 20% of countries worldwide, and it's doing better, compared by that indicator, than a number of EU peers. So that's quite a positive medium-term development, albeit with a little bit less momentum most recently. Second point is also when you think about integration in global and European value chains. You look at exports since 2009, they have about doubled to the EU member states. Romania is a country that is firmly integrated trading with EU partners. More than 70% of goods exports go to Europe. And perhaps it's also worth noting that services, that is an area of services exports. I mean, that's recording strong growth, and it obviously reflects the sectoral strength of the Romanian economy, particularly telecommunication services, business process outsourcing. And this is an interesting area to look into, because this is also where you would find some quite impressive growth stories of new firms, small firms opening up, being created, entrepreneurs coming up with ideas for apps. We talk a lot about the digital economy, but it takes these young people having ideas and putting them into practice. And so you might have heard of that recent, I think it was My Taxi by Mercedes, and they bought Clever Taxi. So I think these are encouraging stories and developments you see in the Romanian economy, and there are lots of factors that make Bucharest in particular a very attractive location for these young people having bright ideas and putting them into practice. So that's all plus points when you think about strength. Having said that, there are also a number of weaknesses or challenges that in a way hold up potential. Well, there's fiscal sustainability, obviously, that remains a bit of a challenge, and also investment dynamics. So the current investment levels, well, in a way, they are just not sufficient to maintain the size of the capital stock. That's what we see in a number of Central and Eastern European countries. And the most recent developments perhaps have not been that encouraging either. For public investment, increasing absorption and absorption capacity, that is just crucial to improve potential growth. And what I want to talk about in the last few minutes remaining is private investment, because this is where we at the EIB do some interesting work. We do a survey polling more than 12,000 companies across Europe, including Romania. So you get a bit of a sense what is on the mind of businesses, challenges they are facing, how they view the investment environment. And what we see in the survey is that Romania is actually the country where we find the lowest share of firms investing. It's just 62% compared to 78% for the region and 84% in the EU. So that's quite a gap. Investment is mostly intangibles, little in research and development, little in training, for instance. So that's just the focus of firms is a bit different here. At the same time, you would find a lot of firms that say, well, we are actually operating at or above capacity. And also, we ask firms how they value the capital stock, and they see that there's definitely an investment need there when it comes to quality. So it's a bit of a puzzle. While on the one hand, we find these strong stated investment needs, while on the other, we don't really see that much investment happening from the private side. We also ask firms about the impediments they see. And here, there are a couple of points that I think are worth reflecting on. Well, first of all is uncertainty. That's a problem for firms. It's a problem for firms across Europe, but also in Romania. There, it's pretty much in line with EU peers, even though one might argue that for Romania it's less uncertainty related to Brexit, but perhaps a bit more uncertainty that's driven by other developments and domestic policy. So uncertainty, as I said, it's always an issue for firms, but interestingly, you would also find that there's one thing where Romania clearly stands out when firms judge impediments to investment. And in Romania, it's transport infrastructure. More than 60% of firms say this is a major, this is a challenge, and it impedes investment, whereas in the EU, on average, it's about 40. And it's in line with what you would see when you look at work by the World Economic Forum. They assess the quality of the transport infrastructure. So in this area, there definitely remains work to do. And another one which I think is going to become more important, particularly in the medium term, when you think about how the Romanian economy can develop and move up the value chain, is that firms state frequently that the availability of staff with the right skills is a challenge for them. Again, it's a bit common to the region, and it reflects a mix of, well, you have external migration, you have low birth rates. At the same time, you see that wage growth is picking up, which is at some point becoming a challenge to price competitiveness. But I would say that in a medium-term perspective, this is definitely an issue that needs to be taken seriously, not to undermine competitiveness and the possibility to further move up the value chain, because for that, firms need people with the right skills. So I think these are three important issues when you think about what are obstacles. And maybe just finally a bit for the challenges looking ahead. Well, from a macro perspective, I would say that yes, we do see strong growth, but it tends to be much consumption-driven. So the challenge is to change the composition of growth a little bit, moving more to investment-led growth, and a model that's perhaps more, well, has advantages in terms of strength and sturdiness for being an anchor. Well, for that, strengthening the enabling factors is, of course, key. Infrastructure, education, health, transport. I think for a country like Romania, given its geography, transport is also a factor that needs to be kept in mind in order to avoid or in order to mitigate intra-country divergences. Well, from a firm's perspective, they're obviously, well, firms in Romania want what firms everywhere else in the world perhaps want. They want a sound, predictable, and business-friendly environment. And I think that's particularly important when you want to have these new small firms that bring innovation and dynamics to the economy, and ultimately help to raise productivity.
Thanks so very much. I'm going to turn to the audience in a minute, and I will make sure that I can look at this side as well as the other. We have about, Theodore, thank you very much. We have about 20 minutes for questions, but let me begin with the first question. 1 minute each, please. We'll work the way down this way. I see you in a second. The term anchor is very interesting because anchor also implies that you have a strong chain so that you're anchored to something. And if you don't have a strong anchorage, you can drag your anchor, which, if you're in a ship, is not a very wise thing to do. And there's also the expression, someone has an anchor around his or her neck, meaning that's also an impediment. So in a minute, what do you think would be one thing that could be done to make sure that the anchorage is strong, that you don't drag your anchor, and that you have a strong interconnecting chain so that this becomes the foundation for growth? Mr. Minister, what do you think if you had one thing to do, or you probably have one thing you can do as a minister, what would that be?
So first of all, I believe the fact that Romania is the fast-growing economy inside the European Union with 5.8% in the first semester, it's an anchor by itself. So I think there are great things which are happening in Romania, and not from, let's say, because I'm a minister. It's because you see more and more companies from the West which are relocating their entire operation to Romania. Mm-hmm. You see companies like BMW which decided to develop their 4.0 industry, self-driving cars in Romania with Romanian companies. Yep. You see Oracles which in the last 10 years established in Romania the fourth largest operation of Oracle in the world. You see more and more companies to innovation. I'm running the most ambitious startup program in the European Union because this year we are financing 10,000 new startups through which we will bring 21,000 entrepreneurs into the economy. So there are many reasons why to believe that we can be an anchor, not just as Constanta, which is a very important city, which of course there is a high potential to be developed from many points of view, but also Romania, we have to, I mean, if we're looking on the future, I see Romania is the IT hub of Europe. We have today 4 cities which are very demanded and very well developed. It's Bucharest, Timișoara, Cluj, and Iași. So this is in 1 minute what I believe that we are an anchor.
And I'm impressed with this 10,000 startups. I wish we could do that as well in America. Mr. Mayor?
Well, I think that in order to have the anchor as a safety point, for me it's important to underline 2 aspects. One is education, and the second one it's standardization of procedures. Many times these procedures help the trust to raise in a relationship. And I've heard carefully the lady from the investment bank speaking about a friendly business environment. If we follow the same procedures, it's the same procedure. We don't have to trust or to be influenced by the news and let's say, the general impression. So education for people, because we need well-trained people in each sector, not only the economical sector, and Romania provided very well-trained people to all Europe countries. But also we need procedures to be uniform in a, let's say, common vision. And I know that the banks, they understand exactly this need of uniformization of the procedures.
Thank you.
Yosuke. One of the things that give comfort to the EBRD as well as Japanese investors is that the reform process here is fairly well anchored in relation to other countries that the EBRD operates in. And I would just raise the example of the country that I was in last week, Ukraine, where reform is slowing, stalled, sometimes going reverse in areas like anti-corruption and privatization. So I guess the touchstone here would be that I am aware that anti-corruption measures are in place, and because they are in place, they are causing lots of turmoil, but I applaud your efforts because in Ukraine, I'm not sure if it's going anywhere, because and that's the view of not only foreign investors, but domestic reformers. So I applaud your efforts on this issue. And then another issue that we are watching closely is the FSDI, the Sovereign Wealth Fund or the National Property Fund. So I hope that will not be sort of impeding further efforts towards privatization, because I believe Romania is one of the countries that have done privatization fairly well in the former communist countries. Now, I've already mentioned IT, and I was in Lviv last week, where my Korean colleague may elaborate, but Samsung apparently has a large software laboratory there. So I will try to tell my colleagues back in London and back in Japan that there is fertile ground for IT development here in Romania and maybe in places like Lviv, where there is an ample supply of IT talent. That's perhaps one of the few good legacies of the former communist system. So I'll stop there.
Sumin?
Thank you. I think it's very simple for me. First of all, your connection, your alignment with European society is the paramount thing. So if it is isolated Romania, it's different situation. However, if it is Romania, who marches with European society, one by one, together, it's very, very, futuristic, and Korea will come, Japan will come, United States will come. So your alignment with European Union and society is the paramount thing. And if I can be a little bit detailed on the contents, what is the meaning of alignment? Alignment is structural reform, I believe so. Thank you.
Patricia, brief comment, please.
Just quickly, basically, I very much agree with the points you made. I would also stress Romania as being part of the EU. So there you have a very strong chain, again for Romania itself, for development, I guess, strengthening transport infrastructure in Romania and networks beyond. That's obviously a key thing for economic development. And there are obvious complementarities so that once you have the infrastructure in place, it is going to open up business opportunities for local businesses. So that's a very important point. For that, obviously it takes sound planning and also, we heard this morning implementation, large infrastructure projects. That is, of course, something that requires a lot of work going into preparation and then step-by-step implementation. And having consistency on that, I think, is also a very, very important point.
Thank you. There was a hand over there. May I ask you to introduce yourself and direct your question to either one or anybody in the panel, please?
Laufer Chanel. from Istanbul Şehir University. I'm Aspen fellow. I have two questions. The first one, actually the questions are all relating with the all panelist speeches. The first one is directly goes to the Minister Laufer to speak. We are always speaking about the strategic hedging, but I want to mostly focusing on the obstacles. What are the main obstacles standing in front of the FDI flows to Romania, which is also relating with the EBRD and the Japanese, for example, the join of Japan of join it will also, so that part of that I saw that the infrastructure. What are the main obstacles standing in front of the FDI flow to Romania? The second one is also, which is about the central and periphery issues that what is the role and the position of the EBRD in Romania that in regards, this also will be also included, to the tensions among the economic peripheries and the political peripheries of Europe, and also in between those economic and the political peripheries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Minister, you want to go first?
Yeah. So I can say, let's say, I'm thinking about two main things which can, let's say, slow down because as you know, we are already doing many, many things and we are recovering after the crisis very, very well. So I believe we can do more when it's related to infrastructure, and I fully agree with all my, let's say, predecessors which approach this topic. To create an infrastructure, it's helping a lot creating new development, creating new business, bringing new. So for us, it's a priority right now to have the main highway which connects the port of Constanta with the west border of our country with Hungary. I believe this is one of the priorities, of the main priorities, to have this corridor closed. And of course, we can be more active, and this is what we're really doing in the last 6 months. We should be much more active through the international, let's say, visibility of our country. We should promote better what we achieved. We are an anchor, and of course, we are a gateway to a 500 million unique market, the European Union. And we are very, very competitive in many, many fields. So I think we should promote that more. And let's say those are the main two things.
EBRD, what are you going to do for Romania next?
Well, can I just go back to my fourth slide? I read it out again to you. The key priorities are lending and developing capital markets, improve infrastructure and municipal services, and strengthening competitiveness. I can't probably tell you what we're going to because it has to go through the board. But past projects have included privatizations, governance reforms, Electrica, Romgaz, wastewater operators, urban transport. So it's probably on the bank's website. So I would refer you to look at them, please.
So I failed to wiggle out of you what's going to be the next step, but I tried. Sumin?
Yes. Yes, actually, EBRD is established by 65 member countries, which includes all the major economy leading countries of this world. And why we made this bank? We are here to provide capital. And EBRD board members are here to approve the projects. So basically, we are ready. But we are always waiting for countries in ready at the same time. So yes, already 26 years from the establishment of EBRD, and some Central European countries are well advanced and transformed. So we are looking for new territories. So we operate in CEMET regions, which we call CEMET. CEMET is North Africa, some of countries, and Middle East, and like that. And EBRD is reaching our hands to far to Central Asia to find a good country, to find a partner country who is ready. So why not Romania? Romania is our top priority. We are just always waiting for the dialogue partnership and marching together.
Thank you. There was a hand here, and there's a lady over here on the left, if we, or on the right side, if we can get it. Back here, please.
Hi, I'm Tyson Barker from the Aspen Institute, Germany. This has been a great conversation. I want to ask two questions for the Romanians on the panel. The first is regarding corruption. That was brought up by the colleagues from the EIB and the EBRD, saying that there's been a lot of positive progress, particularly with regard to ease of doing business. But I'd like to know your assessment of Romania's corruption and anti-corruption efforts. What is the good, what's the bad, and what's the ugly? And then the second question is with regard to tech in Romania. Obviously, Romanian universities, the school system is training some great talent, but what are you doing to keep them here? How are you making sure that they're not going to the Berlins and Londons and Silicon Valleys of the world?
Those are terrific questions. We ought to have a separate panel on that. 1 minute. 1 minute, because we're running out of time.
So first of all, from my point of view, I'm coming after 13 years being in the private sector, and since January I joined the government. But I can tell you that my feeling it's really the corruption really reduced so much in the last 10 years. So I'm quite sure that there are organisms and so on which are cooperating. Regarding the fact that, as you said, we have many talents in our country, and I just give you an example. In Microsoft, they're saying that second, third language is Romanian in the US. So we have to keep them, and of course we have also to bring them back. So as I said earlier, one of the most ambitious programs of the government, which is the most ambitious program for startups in the European Union, we're going to finance, and we started already the process, and this year to finance 10,000 new startups in the economy, which attract to the economy around 21,000 new entrepreneurs, out of which 45% are female entrepreneurs. So we are really trying to do our best. We are trying to create better conditions for them. We have special programs for them, for young people to buy a house with just 5% down payment and a very, let's say, competitive interest rate. So I think that we are doing many things to keep the people here, but we also need to understand better that we have a huge diaspora. We have around 4 to 5 million people. Most of them are in Europe. They created business. They can come back with some know-how, with some knowledge. And I think we also need to think how we can bring part of them back, because many of them wants to come back to their homeland.
Mr. Mayor?
Of course, fighting corruption, it's important, and I think not only for Romania, for every country. But after the results, the significant results Romania achieved in this fight against corruption, I think it's important to promote the results of this fight against corruption. That we have transparency, we have equity, we have openness, we have, let's say, fair treatment for each operator, and this is what we have to promote, the results of this fight. Second, I got a second question about what we are doing in order to keep our good young people in the country. I can endorse Mr. Minister's answer, because I've received even emails from inhabitants of Constanta which left our city, and they've established temporarily in Italy or Spain, and they were asking me about this program, this startup program, because they have their kids willing to come back home in their, let's say, friendly environment with their colleagues, their friends, and so on. So I can testify that this is a good program.
Just one more thing. We put in the Startup Nation program a very special condition for young people. So all our young graduated people generation, doesn't matter if you're talking about high school or university, they received additional points for their business plan. So in this way, out of the, let's say, 20,000 companies applied, and we will finance just 10,000, but out of those 10,000, 76% of them, they are young people, they are young graduated, which decided to remain in Romania and to apply for the program. So this is another, let's say, clear measure that we took during the Startup Nation program in order to convince the young generation to remain and to become entrepreneurs in their own country.
Thank you. Just one moment. In order to convince you about the answer that it's important to promote the results of transparency and fairness, I think that our city, which historically had some issues with the corruption, now has contracts with ERBD, with the World Bank, and in our tenders, for example, for the buses, Mercedes, MAN, you name it, all the companies were involved in this tender. So these are the results of the fight against corruption, and this is about endorsing the chain of trust for an anchor.
Question over here, which I hope will be brief.
I'll try. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Nadina Busiok. I'm part of the Aspen Young Leaders program this year. I'm also originally from Constanta, and I work in tech and IT in my daily life. I actually wanted to build up on the previous question and the whole anchor theme. Are there any concrete plans to make Romania and Constanta, because of the strategic position, an anchor for tech between the EU talent and the more eastern, southern talent? Turkey, Israel, so countries that have already a tech scene. And how do you see these things?
A new Silicon Valley.
Yes.
First the minister and then the mayor, then we'll just have to call it.
So, of course, that one of my priorities as a minister is to improve the ecosystem in Romania, and for that we need to understand, and it's not a short answer. So, first of all, that we have to focus on our universitary centers. So this is very important for the transfer of technology from universities to incubators to new companies which are created around the universities. So for this, we are working and we are trying to improve the actual legislation for incubators in order to have more stimulants for those who are on the incubators, companies or entrepreneurs. On the other hand, it's very important also to understand that we have to stay in line with the change in technology. So fintech, crowdfunding, venture capital, better angel business, let's say legal frame. So this is a huge priority for us, and we are doing that. And I think that step by step, the ecosystem in Romania is becoming more competitive. If you're asking me about locations, Constanta should and might be even more involved in creating a tech technology center there. But as I said, Cluj, Bucharest, Iași, and Timișoara are leading these industries right now.
Mr. Mayor, the last word.
I must recognize that our city is somehow behind these important centers, Cluj, Iași, Timișoara, and of course Bucharest. But we are trying to reach them and overpass them. That's why in order to see our strategy, I invite you to attend next week the meeting in Constanta, because Aspen Constanta City Lab has this purpose to bring what the companies have as knowledge in this moment in our city to transfer to the young people in Constanta these knowledges, and after that, together to create an environment, and of course I'm counting on the support of Mr. Minister, to have clear vision and clear projects in order to achieve this goal, in fact, because I want our city, and I'm glad that you are from Constanta, to be a young city.
Before I ask you to thank the panel, I'm going to torture the use of the word anchor one last time to say in 15 minutes after the break, I'm going to turn this floor over to the Fox News anchor who's claiming. Business, of course. Please help me to thank the panel for a very stimulating start to this great conference. Thank you all very much. That was great stuff.
Thank you so much.
Great stuff.